you don't really get to make a judgment. And I don't say that to be rude, like your opinion doesn't matter, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We've got Cameron Condie with us today, and I just learned this a couple of minutes ago. I don't know if you knew this.
I had no idea. No.
This is Gaynolyn Condie's son. You might have just seen the episode. Well, this might come out a little later, but you might have recently seen the episode that we did with her. This is posterity of Gaynolyn.
The bar's set pretty high.
Set. She's incredible.
She's pretty cool.
And I joke that I'm going to start a TV show called How You Met My Mother because so many people come up to me randomly and they're like, I know your mom, I love her so much. And I'm like, I don't know who you are, but thank you.
That's awesome.
That's very cool.
But people are getting to know you a little bit more.
Yeah,
because of something that you wrote that's been kind of going around recently.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
All right. I served in Zimbabwe, which is down at the bottom of Africa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a companion who got very sick, and it was kind of random. No one really knew what was going on. And
he was from the States?
Yeah, he was from the States.
Okay.
And he just had lots of medical issues with his stomach and other things. And one day he came to me, he's like, I'm going home. I've prayed about it a lot. I talked to the president, and I don't want to, but this is what I have to do.
This is mission president.
Mission president, yeah.
Not president of Zimbabwe.
No.
That'd be cool too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't really know how to respond, but I woke up one night and I had this idea to write a letter to his parents because my initial reaction was, oh no. I used to judge missionaries that came home early, and I would go, oh, medical reasons, cool, yeah, right, sure. Mr. Disobedient.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always my gut reaction. And it happened over and over and over again, where I'd be sitting in sacrament meeting and I'd look up and I'd be like, wait, it hasn't been 2 years. Why are they home?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they back?
They took the easy way
out.
Yeah.
And that frustrated me because I had seen firsthand how hard he had worked, and I didn't want that to happen to him. I didn't want him to go home and have to deal with people judging him. And so I wrote this letter. And I didn't think much of it. And then I went home, we went, continued doing missionary work for the week. And I came back the next week and I had 6 or 7 random emails from people I didn't know. And they were all like, we read your letter. We love it so much. And I was like, what are you talking about? What? And then the next one I read was my mom. And she said, LDS Living picked up on it after his mom posted it on Facebook. And they published it. And it's been shared a couple thousand times. And I went, oh.
Wow.
Okay.
That explains it all.
All right. This makes sense. And it was crazy because it was never really intended to be read by anyone. It was
just for his parents.
It was just for his parents to know that I backed him up and I cared about him and hoped that other people would take the time to try to do the same.
Interesting. I would love to have time to read the entire letter right now, but we'll have a link in the description for you guys to go down and read it because it's excellent. And
yeah.
How long were you guys together, you and your companion, before he left? And how long had he been in the mission before he left?
I want to say he'd been out for 9 months.
Okay.
And we'd been together, I think we were total, we were together about a transfer and a half.
Okay.
So 8 weeks or so. Nothing too crazy.
Wow. So you said you just woke up in the middle of the night with this idea to write the letter. Was there any other thought process there? Like, was he worried about how his parents might react? And so you were just like, hey, just so you know.
I've got to be honest. I can't claim credit for the letter. I got to give it all to God because my writing abilities up to that point had been defined strictly by my weekly letters home. And they were fun to write, but they were stupid stories and they weren't great. And this was the fastest, and still remains, the fastest thing I've ever written in my life. I wrote it in a single draft. It took me 20 minutes. My letters home took an average of 3 hours, and they were about the same length. So I did it in 20 minutes. I didn't edit it at all. And I put like one extra word in, and I just pushed send and didn't think anything else of it. So my mind just goes to that quote by Mother Teresa that talks about her being a pencil in God's hand. And that's how I felt as I was writing this. As I look back on it now. It wasn't really me. I was just the pencil trying not to get in the way too much.
It's Very interesting.
So did you get a letter back from his parents?
A few weeks later, I didn't think anything of it, like I said. I don't remember how the timeline played out exactly, but I just remember he mentioned it one time as we were walking. He's like, oh, by the way, my mom said your letter was really sweet, and that's all I heard about it. So
give us a rundown of what you said in the letter and why it has been, or at least in your eyes, why you think it has been resonating so well with people.
Okay. Essentially, it was, he worked hard, we do our best when we come out, and then eventually, every once in a while, the mission just loses its sparkle, I guess, its appeal, and you want to go home, or things get tough. And Elder Kazir wasn't one of those people. The other thing is, I don't think the letter was ever intended for him, because of all the companions I had, he was the toughest, not in the sense of he was a difficult companion, but he was resilient, and he worked hard, and he continued. So I don't know if the letter even helped at all him. I don't know if it helped him at all, but I think it was meant for the other people that read it, and that's evidenced by how big it got, I think. But it essentially just said, look, I've seen this firsthand. He worked hard. He did his best. We need to stop judging missionaries that come home early, because I've done it myself. And it's a problem, because up until now, I haven't seen how hard they work and how difficult of a decision this is. And I was wrong.
Yeah.
So just knock it off, pretty much.
Stop it.
Yeah, stop it.
I think you even
that's how
said
it finished.
that. Yeah, you said stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I definitely agree. I think that too often we judge people who do come home early. I've got several people in my life who came home early from their missions. Two of them being my own companions about a transfer after we got separated. And most often it's always been mental health related. I've noticed I feel like the number of missionaries going home with mental health issues has been skyrocketing
Exponentially,
lately.
yeah.
And I see that like the church is trying really hard to combat things like that with like weekly calls home and things like that.
And that's like one of the easiest things to judge people on, the things that you can't see. Like if, you go out there, you get hit by a car, like, oh,
he's in a body cast.
He's in a body cast. He is coming home for a good reason. But like if it's deeper than that and you can't see it, it's so easy just to be like, well, he gave up.
Was he really depressed? Or,
Yeah.
And mental health is one that I really wanted to focus on leading up to this interview. I hadn't experienced any mental health issues going into my mission. And I entered the MTC. I didn't want to go home. I was like, this is great. What are people complaining about? This isn't that hard. And shortly after my first companion left, he got transferred. I woke up one day and I was like, I don't want to get out of bed. And I think God gave me a little bit of a taste of what it's like to have chronic depression in that moment, because I didn't want to move. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to do anything. And I'd lived my whole life hearing, oh, you just don't want to get out of bed. You're like, what do you mean you don't want to get out? Just get out of bed. No, you don't want to move. You don't want to live. You don't want to do anything. And you would much rather just spend 8 hours staying at home, lying around. And it is the worst feeling I've ever experienced. And it went away after 2 days. But from that point on, my eyes were opened a little bit. Like when people go home from their missions early for depression, I don't know how they survive. I don't know how they manage to stay out as long as they do. And my respect for those people is higher than just about anyone else.
I have a huge respect for people that also choose to come back.
Absolutely.
Like, because
even
it's
harder sometimes.
Oh my gosh, because you really have no idea what a mission is like until you're there. Like
Right.
you hear stories from your siblings and you can read stuff online, but it's one of those things that like you come home from a mission and people ask, how'd it go? And you're like, good.
Great.
And in your mind, you've got 2 years of memories that have just impacted you so deeply. And there's no way they could possibly understand what you've been through.
No.
For a while, you can't even process it yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when somebody experiences the difficulty of being a missionary and then something happens that causes them to go home and then they come back knowing beforehand what they're about to face, that blows my mind because It's a tough deal.
Yeah, like before you go on a mission, you know that it's hard, right? You're like, oh, I know it's hard, but you have no idea what kind of hard that is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you experience so many things you've never experienced before, and so yeah, going in with your eyes open is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect, my mission was super hard, but I wouldn't give it up for anything.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because I didn't know how hard it was going to be going in. Like I wonder. Like that just must be so different. Like I can't even imagine. Like you
and
said.
it's different types of hard for so many different people. For one person, it might be the physical aspect. I lost 12 pounds on my mission. I don't really have 12 pounds to lose. My hair started falling out because I wasn't eating enough. But none of that really bothered me because you just tough it out. But the exhaustion of arguing with someone for an hour and that's first of all, you're not supposed to argue as a missionary, but then you go into that and you're like, why can't I change anyone's minds? Why can't I make them see what I feel? That to me, over the course of 2 years, was what started chipping away.
It's the psychological game.
And for some, it might be a lack of testimony. For some, it might be tough companions. It varies from situation to
And there are a
situation.
lot of people that are coming from, third world countries that have tough home lives, or their families are in poverty back home, or all these different things that you just don't see. But speaking of missionaries who come home early and the way that we kind of look at them or categorize them or judge them, what's the solution? How do we stop it?
How do we stop it?
If you have any insight
My
on that.
my initial reaction is your opinion's not going to help much anyway, one way or the other. If they're struggling with coming home early, whether they had a valid reason, and that's in their eyes, first of all, you don't decide who has a valid reason and who doesn't.
Yeah, and in the Lord, that's like
The
between
Lord,
them
exactly,
and the Lord,
exactly.
entirely.
And the church leadership and various other parties, but you're probably not in that group unless you're the bishop or the stake president, and you have an intimate knowledge of what's been going on in that missionary's life. You don't really get to make a judgment. And I don't say that to be rude, like your opinion doesn't matter, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter to me.
And
Wise
There it is.
words.
There it is.
your opinion doesn't matter. So just love. And that's the solution in my mind, is what they need is they're beating themselves up more than you could ever do to them.
Right.
Anything you say, oh, you weren't faithful enough, they're saying to themselves already.
And what they need is to hear the opposite. Like,
Yeah.
you did what you could. You did everything in your power to make this right. It's okay.
And even then, sometimes that just comes across as a platitude. It just comes across as, oh, you're pandering to me. You're trying to make me feel better. That's not what I need. I don't need pity. Just listen. Don't talk. Because we talk too much. We don't listen. And that's why the country's in trouble. And that's why,
That's what's wrong with the kids today.
Yeah, we talk too much, and we think our opinion is more important than listening to what other people have to say.
And that's so hard, because when you see a missionary who's come home and you're outside of that circle, who's part of the decision-making process, you want to know so bad what happened. Because just all the possibilities start swirling around in your head, and you immediately start judging them. You think to yourself, okay, he's home early. Is it because of something he did, or something that happened to him, or did he get sick? And you start thinking, well, is he the kind of person, or she the kind of person that would do something horrible like this, that would get them sent home? And then you start thinking, well, maybe they did something horrible. But then it's, that's not a judgment call for you to make. That's where you need to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Not your business. Just trust them.
Yeah.
Just trust them.
And fight that curiosity. Like, you don't need to know.
If they want to tell you, they'll tell you. But
Yeah.
your job is just to love them no matter what.
Well, even with matters of disobedience, I had a very, very close relationship with my mission president. And sending a missionary home is the last possible resort for every mission president. They have to go through leadership. They have to go through the stake president. They have to talk to the area authorities. It's not like, oh, he's disobedient, we're going to send him. It's, what else can we do? Jacob chapter 5, what more can I do to save my missionary, to save my vineyard? And I'll move him. My companion and I, we went to the best healthcare clinics in the country, and they said, take this pill, do this, do this. We got. It was amazing to see how much they were willing to do, how much money they were willing to spend to help one missionary that wanted to stay on his mission. And I don't know if you understand that until you experience it firsthand or have those conversations with a mission president, because they don't want to go home. They don't want to, and I firmly believe that most missionaries that come home early are telling the truth when they say mental health or physical health.
And that should be our default, is to just take their word for it.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Well, awesome. Cameron, thank you so much for coming. Do you have any final thoughts for anyone out there that might be struggling with this kind of a thing?
Just don't worry about it. You're doing great.
Stop it.
If you came home early, you're right where you're supposed to be, and God's got you, and just let it go. If you have someone in your life that has come home early, trust them and listen, and it'll work out.
Amen. We're too similar. That's weird. That's why
It's weird sometimes, yeah.
That's why I have a beard and Taylor doesn't, because that's the only way we can differentiate.
Really, the only reason is
Between us.
BYU, actually. But
Is BYU. Oh, you go to BYU. That makes sense.
anyway, sorry, derailed.
So Cameron, do you have any like social media platforms that
I don't. This is my phone.
Wow.
I respect
this
that.
Is, this,
That's so
this is
cool.
on purpose. And one day I woke up a few weeks ago and I was like, I'm sick of social media. My opinion doesn't matter. I don't need to start spreading what I think.
So I
no one
don't
really
know.
cares, so I just deleted it all. I did a purge. Instagram's gone, Twitter's gone. If you want to email me, you can put my email in the description or something. It's
Dang,
just my
man.
name.
You're like
I applaud you.
75% off the grid.
That is so. That's like what everyone wishes that they could do, but doesn't have the courage to do. I think.
So if you want to email me, I'm more than willing to talk, listen, whatever.
We'll put that in the description. And since you're not going to be following Cameron anywhere, feel free to follow us on social media, on YouTube and Facebook. And we've even got a website, if you didn't know that. We do.
True story.
Ta-da! I want to end an episode like this. Done.
There you go.
Beautiful.
You did it.